we shall get cracking. Thank you very much for coming along to this higher level and degree level apprenticeships session. I'm Claire Addy, I'm the Degree Apprenticeship Development Fund Skills Project Manager based in the Go Higher West Yorkshire Central team. I think I've met a lot of you before, but it's nice that there's a couple of less familiar faces in the room as well. So just quickly to run through the agenda really, and the whole purpose of this session in its entirety is to ensure that you feel better informed, up to date and more confident and competent when you're engaging with young people and key influencers about degree apprenticeships, and also, you know, to kind of enhance your own professional development in this really kind of exciting area of HE. So we're going to kick off with a general apprenticeships overview from the lovely Mandy Croft-Lee, who's kindly come along to speak with us today and has been consulting very closely on the Degree Apprenticeship Development Fund 2 project, which is being delivered by Go Higher West Yorkshire, led by Leeds Trinity. Then we're going to have a brief comfort break, probably around 2:15, and then I'm going to come back and speak with you about how we have been engaging with young people in NCOP and kind of less advantaged areas of West Yorkshire to create a pipeline of young people that are interested or perhaps considering higher level and degree apprenticeships, and to share with you some of the learnings around the outreach work that I've been doing around that particular strand of the DADF project. And then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end for any remaining questions. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Mandy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, good afternoon. My name is Mandy Croft-Lee, and I've been working with Go Higher West Yorkshire and its partner institutions to support and to raise awareness of degree apprenticeships particularly. So if you are expecting a general input around the whole apprenticeship programme, I'm sorry, because actually the focus this afternoon really is on those higher level apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships specifically. And the reason for that is because we've had, we seem to have had quite a lot of change over the last several years on the apprenticeship programme more generally, but we've had since 2015 a new concept called degree apprenticeships. It's really that concept that I want to be able to explore with you today, because clearly they are creating for the first time some very exciting opportunities for young people and for adults in routes to higher level occupations and into the professions. For those of you who are perhaps on the cusp of understanding apprenticeships and what apprenticeships can offer, certainly the young people that you come into contact with, I thought I'd start with the government's own definition of what an apprenticeship is. And this definition has been around for the last 4 years, since we kind of entered a large, long-scale programme of apprenticeship reform. And you'll notice that actually apprenticeships are defined in a specific way, which talk about a job first, a skilled occupation second, and that it requires substantial and sustained training leading to the achievement of an apprenticeship standard and the development of transferable skills to progress careers. It doesn't make any mention of qualifications or levels of skill. So it is an all-encompassing definition, but actually there are some specifics there that I think really do apply to higher and degree apprenticeships. The nice thing about degree apprenticeships is that they are now gaining purchase. They have purchase with employers and increasingly young people, because they're creating for the first time a work-based, a workplace route into some of those professions that previously were really unattainable outside of graduate routeways. I thought I'd just kind of recap on that headlines for your benefit really. This afternoon is about really getting you to understand the fit of higher degree apprenticeships, because if your association with apprenticeships is actually around craft and trade, then be prepared to have some of those kind of understandings challenged, because apprenticeships are no longer about just the butcher and the baker. They're increasingly about the professions in banking, in finance, in law, in health, and in engineering and digital and in management. And really, I think it's about understanding that apprenticeships have been changing, and we've now got a very stretched brand. And apprenticeships now stretch from level 2, so lower secondary school achievement, right through to level 7, so postgraduate skills, and into level 8 at some point in the near future. And apprenticeships have been changing for a number of reasons as well inside government. Certainly the apprenticeship brand that we have historically become very familiar with has been long associated with potentially poor outcomes for young people particularly, but also low quality provision. And in 2010-11, the government decided actually that apprenticeships were very important in terms of UK PLC and the UK economy around actually driving productivity and business growth, and actually supporting and certainly engendering social mobility for both young people and for adults through work. Apprenticeships increasingly have become much more employer involved and employer led, and that throws up a number of challenges when you're engaging with young people and talking about their aspirations. But certainly under the reforms, apprenticeships are now designed and created by employers who actually describe what full occupational competency looks like as an outcome day one of completion of an apprenticeship. So they are leading, certainly, the design and the creation of the knowledge, skills and behaviours that create an apprenticeship standard. And it's the apprenticeship standard as a product that you're going to have to become much more familiar with. The good news is that as part of the reforms to apprenticeships, that around about almost a half of apprenticeship standards have been developed and devised and created at HE level. And that's unprecedented, because actually if you think about the long association with apprenticeships, typically we're looking at skills at level 2, level 3. So what we're seeing actually, both in terms of government design but also employer demand, a shift in the roles that they want to actually support through an apprenticeship programme. And they're moving out of roles such as in business administration and customer service, and in some of those craft and trade roles, and into higher and degree apprenticeships in technical, managerial and professional occupational areas. And that growth has started to really manifest itself in terms of certainly raising employer demand. So what are the key changes? Well, we know there's been a substantial move upwards in employer interest in apprenticeships. I think primarily because we have something which they know will make a big impact and a benefit to their own organisations. But actually, government haven't left it at just actually, appealing to employers to actually understand the benefit of apprenticeships per se. They've actually incentivised employers. And last year, they introduced something called the apprenticeship levy for large employers with a pay bill in excess of £3 million. And that's a deliberate government policy. Because the difficulty with apprenticeships so far is that large employers typically don't engage with apprenticeships, and they don't actually invest necessarily large amounts in workforce development. So government have actually mandated employers to contribute to the apprenticeship system going forward. And that gives us some certainty that apprenticeships are not short-term and they're not a project or a short-term initiative that we can ignore. I think actually the levy going forward will certainly maintain the apprenticeship system in a way that we haven't actually experienced or enjoyed before. So what have we had in terms of the legacy of apprenticeships so far? Well, although there have been issues and questions around the quality of some apprenticeship provision, there has been some excellence in apprenticeship provision to date. But actually, what we've had actually is a domination by typically low-level skills at level 2. And for young people, it means going into an apprenticeship at a level potentially lower than the qualifications that they've exited full-time education through school or through FE with. And in some questionable occupational roles, which has really kind of skewed the perception of what apprenticeships are for. And I think actually historically what we've had is that apprenticeships are for those who typically wouldn't take up a route through HE. And it's been a confused policy agenda around a choice for those that are wanting or able to stay on in school, or focused really via the delivering the skills needed by the economy. And that's caused a lot of confusion. What are apprenticeships for? And I think actually the association with low level has also actually associated with actually young people and adults who are less able to actually access high level learning or high level skills. And apprenticeships typically have been labelled a good choice, particularly in government, of other people's children, rather than accepting that actually apprenticeships now, because we've stretched the brand to include higher level skills, that actually the choice is for everybody, including you and I. That actually what we've seen emerge actually are potential routeways into training in the workplace for people who haven't had an opportunity to actually access a higher level qualification or programme previously. So we're really dominated by the past and the history of apprenticeships, which unfortunately have left some sort of poor legacies. Apprenticeships presently are designed and developed by employers who are now the direct investor and purchaser of apprenticeships. it was always the case that the employer was actually the key customer, because actually apprenticeships have always been job first. But actually that does skew the conversation that you might have in terms of the way that you're supporting young people's aspirations, because they might choose to do an apprenticeship, but actually it starts with the employer and the employer choice. We've had clearly, a government intervention around the apprenticeship levy, which is now mandating employers take more notice of the apprenticeship programme as it's evolved. But the other exciting element to apprenticeship change is that we're seeing a very different provider base for delivery. Where you probably associate apprenticeship delivery with FE colleges or private training providers, what we've seen over the last 18 months actually is that universities have been moving into the apprenticeship space and at a pace. And what we've got as a result of that actually is that all mission groups, all university mission groups, are now represented as approved providers on the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers, including some world-leading universities such as Cambridge, Imperial and King's. Typically, apprenticeships have been dominated in the HE space by those modern and 1992 universities with a long tradition of actually delivering employer-led programmes and professional development programmes. But we're now seeing that increasingly those very high-level universities with a very strong research base, recognising that there are pressures in terms of student numbers and the way in which we value HE, they're moving into this market with some deliberation. They recognise that actually apprenticeships have been moving into HE territory for some time, and they can see a good fit with their own strategic priorities. And of course what we've currently got actually is a big debate around the value of full-time HE or degree-led programmes, particularly over the value and the rate of levels of debt, and the value for money and the value in the labour market. Clearly, government have instigated a fee review and the cost of HE going forward. And although we can demonstrate much value, it's kind of playing into the apprenticeship space increasingly. So we've often heard that apprenticeships, certainly at the higher level, are a good alternative. I would sort of probably emphasise the alternative is a wrong word. What apprenticeships are doing actually are increasingly giving opportunities for young people and adults to actually come out with the same qualification outcome as if they went into full-time HE. We've also seen alongside the reforms for apprenticeships an increasing focus on the technician level of skills around level 4 and 5 and the introduction of the Institutes of Technology. Again, that's important in terms of the way that you support young people in terms of their career development and pathways. The introduction of tier levels at level 3 again may well produce a new high quality technical option for 16 to 19-year-olds as opposed to actually putting them into a low-level apprenticeship with questionable outcomes. So we've got a lot going on in this space, particularly around apprenticeships and technical level education, that are impacting on the design and the purpose of apprenticeships. So how would you define a higher degree apprenticeship? Well, higher apprenticeships extend from level 4 right through to level 7. Okay? And that design has existed for some time. We've had very little provision developed at the higher apprenticeship at level 6 and 7. It's mostly been around level 4. But actually degree apprenticeships were introduced in 2015 with an explicit purpose, that the degree, as a protected term, was about actually giving an individual who followed a degree apprenticeship a definite outcome in qualification terms. So a full bachelor's degree at level 6 or a full master's degree at level 7. So very distinct from higher apprenticeships that extend into level 6 and level 7, but do not necessarily contain those full qualifications. But in terms of looking at the definition, if we look at kind of, the scale of sort of understanding, the first point is that an apprenticeship for all levels, irrespective of type, is a job first, with substantial and sustained training. So it goes back to the original definition. And it is about job readiness and achievement of full occupational competence. And a deliberate part of the design for higher degree apprenticeships, as with other apprenticeships, is that qualifications in themselves are not good outputs. That qualifications in themselves do not actually deliver somebody who's fully competent. The apprenticeship, of course, is not just a qualification. It is about work placement in terms of it's a job. It's not about it being work experience. It is about actually somebody starting a career first. So talking about actually the benefits of an apprenticeship because it gives somebody work experience, well actually the driver for most employers is that they recruit because they actually support a sustainable opportunity in the job for somebody who's actually going to start a career with them. Apprenticeships do have a minimum duration, and again it's important to kind of bear in mind when you're talking to young people about what their expectations might be when they actually enter an apprenticeship programme. Every apprenticeship has a minimum duration of 12 months, but certainly for higher degree apprenticeships, because of the nature of the complexity of the job roles and what they have to demonstrate in terms of competency, typically they are going to be 3 to 5 years long, which is a long time for somebody to stay with one employer, although it is possible for an individual to move employers and retain their apprenticeship. But actually these are long programmes, and they're long programmes because there's a lot of content to cover when somebody is in actually a full-time job or in work. I've already said that apprenticeships are not a short-term initiative or project. Apprenticeships are the government's flagship skills programme. And the apprenticeship levy is ring-fenced specifically just to be spent on apprenticeships, which means actually it really focuses the way that employers are now behaving in terms of the way they actually utilise their own investment. There's also generous co-investment for non-levy paying employers. So you can see the incentives collectively are, we suspect from this year, going to really raise demand. Apprenticeships again are not about young people alone. Apprenticeships are an all-age programme 16 plus. It is an England-wide programme. Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales have their own apprenticeship systems. But the key here actually is that apprenticeships are free to the individual learner, including graduates who reskill. And that was a newly introduced piece of the funding puzzle that was introduced last year, which actually gave the ability for employers to take a graduate and actually put them on an apprenticeship at a higher or a lower level than their existing qualification or the same level, and fund them through an apprenticeship providing that they were learning discernibly new skills. It's a very good incentive for employers to think differently about the way in which they recruit. So it's free to all apprentices, which means that they cannot and must not contribute any cost towards their apprenticeship programme. And that is very telling, because actually what we want to ensure that actually individuals are supported throughout by employers in terms of their programme of learning. What's likely in terms of higher degree apprenticeships is that, certainly in terms of the provider base, potentially some apprentices are going to be the non-typical HE candidates. And I think that's a challenge that some university providers and HE providers are still grappling with in terms of what those learners have on entry to their programmes. The term apprentice and apprenticeship is now protected by law, as is degree. The Enterprise Act of 2017 means that actually it's protected. So no employer can actually say that they are running and supporting an apprenticeship if it's not recognised by government. And apprenticeships are defined by the level of the job as opposed to the level of the qualification or any particular sort of programme outcome. And what we're saying actually in this space is that the universities are engaging for delivery, that they need to rethink potentially the content of their degree or HE programmes, because they have to ensure that those programmes do meet the requirements of the apprenticeship first. Degree apprenticeships can be integrated or non-integrated, which means that for the individual, they can either be working with one individual provider right throughout the whole of their apprenticeship programme, or actually at the end point assessment, which is the new introduction of the assessment of the individual at the end of their apprenticeship, with another provider who assesses their competency in their professional skill. So it's becoming more complex to sort of explain to an individual who they're going to be engaging with on any particular apprenticeship programme. It's got more complex and there are more features. One of the sort of key elements of a definition of an apprenticeship is the amount of time that an individual spends actually in learning, in active teaching and learning. The apprenticeship requirement is that a minimum of 20% is spent off the job doing that active teaching. Okay? And this is not about just having somebody actually just being assessed for their existing skills. This is actually about their face-to-face contact. It can be remote, but their face-to-face contact with a tutor or teacher. English and maths requirements are still a minimum requirement for higher degree apprenticeships, and they're still possible to be achieved on programme if an individual doesn't have one or both. So it's really trying to sort of break down some of the barriers about access to some of these high-level occupations. So it's not just the delivery of the university's HE programme, but the degree award is an integral part of degree apprenticeships. But actually, in terms of the apprenticeship programme, it really is important that the individual understands that their on-the-job time is as important as any off-the-job moment. So actually what they're doing is reflecting all the time about their workplace practice and how that contributes to their learning on their HE or degree programme. What we've seen quite clearly is that higher degree apprenticeships have moved us into some new routes to the professions and in new sectors. And I think actually this association, typically with craft and trade, has really kind of been bust, that actually what we've now got actually is that all sectors are now represented in the apprenticeship family. There's a big drive towards supporting progression and promoting social mobility in apprenticeships. And that is simply because we quite clearly know that for some on apprenticeship programmes, progression doesn't happen. That actually what you get is a tendency to actually give them sort of, a level of qualification or skill that they've already got. But what we're really clear about is that apprenticeships at the higher level and degree apprenticeships are not a second-rate route into HE. That actually what individuals are given, young apprentices and adults, are given the best of both worlds. That actually what they're able to access actually is the same qualification outcome or programme outcome as if they'd gone into full-time or part-time HE as a discrete student. And it is a choice for all young people and adults. And in social mobility terms, it's as much about young people as it is about adults. In terms of the definition of an apprenticeship, people tend to call an apprenticeship a qualification. At this current stage, an apprenticeship is not a qualification per se, but it is certificated as an outcome. So a certificate of apprenticeship is actually achieved at the end of the apprenticeship programme. We do know that actually increasingly the higher degree apprenticeships are really linked to licence to practice. So what you're getting actually is that you've got apprenticeship programmes that are now being designed to ensure that somebody can actually access professional body recognition and certainly membership. And we know that actually in terms of achievement of the apprenticeship, that degree apprenticeships are having sort of, a lot of traction inside employers. So in terms of the definition, it's quite complex. Increasingly, that the policy of apprenticeships is still quite fluid, that actually we've still got some uncertainties about what a degree apprenticeship is understood by government as. But certainly from this stage, higher degree apprenticeships are really stretching the brand into new sectors and into certainly new employers and for new cohorts. So in terms of some of the messages that you might want to share or certainly align yourself with, so who are they for? Well, again, we're talking about an all-age programme. Typically, 18 plus, you've got candidates on degree apprenticeships, leaving schools and FE colleges. But in terms of accessing provision at level 4 and above, we're saying that actually employers determine increasingly the candidates that actually follows these particular programmes. But they are a new earn while you learn debt-free progression route, and that is clearly gaining some mileage with some young people when they're making their decisions at Key Stage 5 or earlier. And they are clearly now routes into the higher education, through higher education to professions and managerial occupations in a way that we haven't seen before. It is work-based learning. So these individuals are going to be in work and getting all the benefit of being in work. But actually what we're hoping to see actually is that increasingly that these routes will be for the underrepresented cohorts of learners who typically wouldn't access or be able to access HE. It goes back to perhaps some of the issues around actually apprenticeships for other people's children, that actually we want to see that apprenticeships are a classless choice and an option for everyone. And this unhelpful academic versus vocational divide, this sort of binary model that says academic over here and vocational over there, hopefully through apprenticeships at this level will be broken down. It's nonsense to suggest that universities don't deliver and understand what it means to actually assess and accredit knowledge and professional practice. Higher apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships are a really good way of tackling key skills gaps and shortages, increasingly in those crisis occupations in the public sector. So think nursing, think teaching, think social work. And in the private sector, where there's clearly a skill shortage and a skills demand, particularly around engineering, digital, leadership and management, construction, engineering. Clearly, whenever we talk about the policy of apprenticeships, we want to ensure that actually locality is reflected, that the provision that's available and the demand by employers is really meeting local skills priorities and is actually meeting the successful delivery of the National Industrial Strategy. If you think about the Northern Powerhouse, recent statement that actually Northern Powerhouse would like, certainly the northern regions, to be known for their degree apprenticeship provision. So you can see it's capturing the imagination of some of those who are actually pulling policy levers. But it goes back to the initial statement, which is what are apprenticeships for? They are for the dual purpose of driving productivity and supporting social mobility. And I think actually whenever you talk about how you contextualise your conversation with young people, it's about growing the economy, making sure that there are jobs there for them to fulfil and that they have the right skills to do that and that there are no artificial barriers there to prevent their progress. Okay, so what are the opportunities going forward? Well, clearly we've seen substantial interest from individuals because there is no fee, there's no debt going forward, and the outcome will be the same as if they'd gone into full-time HE, as individual purchasing students. The difficulty, actually, is about the choice that those individuals will have. Their choice will be limited by the aspiration of an employer, locally or not. But clearly, the incentive to the employer is that taking on an apprentice, particularly at the higher level, they get the prospect of a graduate, day one on completion, who is fully competent, no further training required for the occupational job role that they've fulfilled. We've seen employers pushing apprenticeships upwards. Certainly in terms of levy recovery, that's a big incentive. So certainly the big levy-paying public sector are looking at really recruiting quite large numbers into registered nurse, into social work, into police constables, where typically in the public sector you see most professions need a graduate outcome. And we're seeing some real change in terms of the way employers are actually engaging around STEM. And actually we're seeing some really good outcomes in terms of getting more women into some of those STEM occupations. Some of the largest demand has been around actually looking at the Chartered Manager degree apprenticeship, but actually management and leadership is as valid for an employer in terms of the demand for actually upskilling and reskilling as any other occupation. So we're seeing large growths in those areas. It is a way to widen participation. All of you are concerned with widening participation, increasing access, and enhancing social mobility. Some of that is yet to be really properly tested, and I think certainly the activity that Go Higher West Yorkshire have been leading over the last 6 months is about looking at the evidence to support why social mobility in apprenticeships is a good thing. And we're looking at tackling some of those low representation across some of those particular occupations. But clearly, what we're doing across West Yorkshire aligns well with the regional priorities around digital technology, construction engineering, leadership and management, for example. But certainly what we're seeing is employers are being incentivised to demand more and higher numbers. But at the moment, we're still seeing some behaviour from employers that actually means that some of those opportunities for young people with their aspirations set on doing a work-based learning programme is being slightly stymied. I've done a trawl of all the opportunities at degree apprenticeship level, because of course higher degree apprenticeships are quite large. Over 40% of all provision at the moment is at HE level. But you can see actually, if you think that we now have opportunities in degree apprenticeships, everything from architect right through to therapeutic radiographer, and everything in between across some of the key sectors that you'll be interested in supporting some of your individual students to look to in terms of career choice. It's a growing market, particularly at the graduate level, so level 6. What we've got actually on the right-hand side actually is all of this provision is yet to be ready and approved by government. But clearly we've seen some really large leaps into some new provision on the left-hand side across certainly construction, engineering, management. So it's a really dynamic space, and this is growing all the time. So what you see now will be different tomorrow, because actually every employer group is actually encouraged to keep developing. There's a lot in health on the right-hand side that's still to be approved, but actually we've got the first apprenticeship in registered nurse. So you can see some real pushing of the boundaries and understanding of what an apprenticeship is. We've yet to have a first level 8, but that will be an HE professional role. But actually what we've got here actually are routes for people into teaching, into HE academic professional roles, into sort of storyboard artists. So you can see the stretch and the inclusion is becoming very, very expansive. So in terms of going forward, how should we judge success or failure in apprenticeships? Well, partly that's down to you and I, because actually you are also sort of shaping the market and actually trying to sort of grow the understanding amongst young people, schools, and their advocates and their sort of influencers about what an apprenticeship is and what it's not. I think in terms of success, what we're looking for actually is that we will have provision going forward, not based on just what providers think employers want, but actually really reflective of employer demand, and that they will be focused on real skills gaps and shortages, both in the public and private sector. We know that these small and medium-sized employers typically have grown apprenticeship starts. They've been really what the renaissance on apprenticeships have been built on. But actually, certainly in the larger employer sort of, market where we expect demand to grow and to grow rapidly. I think in terms of the context of apprenticeships, what we hope actually with the outcome of the T-levels is that there is probably a new high quality sort of college-based vocational technical route for some young people, where they're not then being pushed into some questionable apprenticeship roles elsewhere, and that actually you play a part in actually really understanding and well articulating the work-based progression pathways from advanced apprenticeships at level 2 right through to postgraduate degree apprenticeships. The level 3 glass ceiling is a real issue for apprenticeships. We see quite a lot of activity, probably up to and including level 2, some activity at level 3, but beyond that we don't see much success in terms of individuals' progression. Individuals can have more than one apprenticeship in their lifetime. So they can actually follow an incremental ladder, or they can be supported from sort of their full-time sort of education in college or school into a degree apprenticeship and come out at the other end fully competent in a high-paying occupational area. I think we need to really kind of, look at apprenticeships in terms of lifelong learning, which is actually that apprenticeships are as much for the existing workforce as they are for young people, and that actually do support progression and act as a basis for lifelong learning going forward. And that increasingly, when we start to look at the definition of apprenticeships and the types of cohorts that we kind of engage with, that they are actually from all socioeconomic backgrounds. There's some recent news that suggests that degree apprenticeships are just for the middle classes. I think it's a bit of a headline, sort of tabloid headline, which is probably not substantiated by too much evidence, but you can see where some of the nervousness is around degree apprenticeships and the types of cohorts that are entering them. This is about actually ensuring that all young people are well prepared, that they understand what it means to be on an apprenticeship at that level. But actually we really want to see the positive impact on apprenticeships on both productivity and business growth, and on supporting and driving social mobility. And I think actually what we're looking at is certainly a better understanding of the positioning of apprenticeships, sort of vis-a-vis perhaps typically where we've seen apprenticeships really be as a solution for NEET and for those adults not in work. This is a very different sort of opportunity and a very different scale of success. So I would say it was a new era for skills. Apprenticeships, even at the higher level, and degree apprenticeships are part of the skills system going forward. So we've had a renaissance in apprenticeships. We've seen numbers, certainly into the last year, creep up steadily. We've had a target set by government as far away as 2010, around 3 million new apprenticeship starts by 2020. I think it's less about the numbers and more about the quality of the opportunity and the quality of the experience for young people and for adults. So higher degree apprenticeships are being developed in occupations that are of vital importance, both in the private sector and in the public sector, particularly where we've got sort of issues of efficiency in the public sector and issues of skills gaps and skills shortages in the private sector. I think what we're looking at, certainly from the estimate of the development of degree apprenticeships, that we're looking at an important change in terms of higher apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships becoming an important and significant part of the apprenticeship programme, and in higher education and higher education provision. Certainly in West Yorkshire you're very fortunate. All of your HEIs are now approved to deliver apprenticeships. It's a matter for them to work very hard with yourselves and with employers to ensure that their provision can support young people's aspirations. I would say that degree apprenticeships are a once-in-a-generation opportunity. They are becoming a fundamental and mainstream part of apprenticeship provision, but the numbers are still small. Fewer than 1% of all apprenticeships are degree apprenticeships, but actually what we're seeing is clearly in the last year a huge hike in terms of starts and numbers. What we've seen are clearly new routes into some of those professions that required graduate skills on entry, and certainly new cohorts. And I think the more that we can get in terms of good case studies and examples, the better to showcase what higher degree apprenticeships can offer. And it goes back to the way that we describe it. We keep hearing degree apprenticeships are a good alternative to HE or to university life. It's not the right term. It implies it's an either or. And actually what you've got is the best of both worlds, because young people and adults can go into a degree apprenticeship and come out with the same qualification outcome, same level of skill, same portability in terms of qualification. I would say that higher degree apprenticeships are an excellent policy. I worked in government certainly on higher apprenticeship policy, and I would say it's a good thing. And I think actually what we've got is a very good brand stretch. We are unique in England. No other nation has a degree apprenticeship as a concept or as a product. And other nations are looking to us in terms of the excellence that brings in terms of actually, the brand recognition of apprenticeships, stopping this artificial academic versus vocational divide. We need to lose that, because that's not very helpful to either employers who want to recruit and understand better the apprenticeship system, or young people making choices. I just wanted to sort of draw your attention to really what's kind of now currently offered by some HEIs, some universities, who are really working very hard, both with employers to raise demand because they have to create the opportunities in the first place, but to also support young people accessing some of those opportunities as they occur. So things like preparing your apprenticeship application. It's becoming a very competitive market. There are too few opportunities at the higher level. We know that. They will grow, but they're still going to be competitive. They will still be, individuals competing for the very best opportunities with some employers, large and small. So getting them ready to understand actually what it means to apply. The choice isn't theirs alone. And actually I think some of this activity is really kind of, spreading the message that actually there's a lot more to be done around raising understanding. I speak to a lot of young people, particularly at events. They still have no understanding about who makes that first decision. It's not about purchasing their own provision anymore. It's about actually waiting for an employer to create the opportunity. And that's sometimes hard when they're wanting to make quick decisions at key stages. But I think actually the clue is in the fact that UCAS now have pages relating to apprenticeships, and they fully understand that in terms of transitional routeways, apprenticeships are important as vocational, technical, traditional qualifications, applied generals and A-levels. I think the work they've done around articulating those progression pathways is really critical. I think without UCAS understanding the merits and the benefits and the opportunities in terms of the language, I think we're always going to face some difficulty around actually persuading young people and some parents that degree apprenticeships, higher apprenticeships or apprenticeships per se are going to be a good choice for their children. So I think we're seeing quite a lot of movement into this space that is supportive of the brand and the stretch into higher and degree apprenticeships.
Yeah. Do we have any questions from Andy before we break?
There must be questions.
Can you give some clarification about, excuse me, where they advertise how people apply? Because there seems to be a number of routes, direct to employers, is it direct with universities, is it through UCAS?
Yep. Well, UCAS is not the route. All they're doing is signposting at the moment. So you don't apply to a degree apprenticeship through UCAS, they will signpost you. But the reality is, it's going to be a mixed model. So that makes it more complicated for you when you're advising individuals as to where do they do their search. But typically, I think it's about actually being aware that certainly some large employers like Nestle and BAE and Royal Mail will actually advertise centrally. But it's about really using some of the government-owned platforms. So there is a discrete platform that is just about advertising employer opportunities in higher and degree apprenticeships. That was launched at the end of last year. So it's about really knowing the breadth of that model, because it is going to be complicated and it's not one route or another.
What's the actual entry criteria criteria?
Really good question. It can be any. The apprenticeship standards, which again you need to start being familiar with the apprenticeship sort of products. You've got an apprenticeship standard and an endpoint assessment plan, which kind of makes up the programme from end to end. Sometimes the standard will say what the entry requirements are. Some are deliberately not specific because of the issues around social mobility. Because actually what we're not wanting to do is to put some artificial barriers in place, when actually the apprenticeship is there to support their skills development over time. So if they don't have their English or their maths, or they don't have either, in effect the apprenticeship should be there to support them to gain those at a minimum level. But some standards do say you will typically have A-levels, you will typically have your English and maths in place, but it is really specific to the standard and the occupation that the apprenticeship supports. So again, it's about looking at the detail of the programme based on the standard and the endpoint assessment plan. So it will vary.
Could someone, for example, do a lower level apprenticeship and then move into a higher level one?
Absolutely, yes, and that's the design. There are no stepping off points in an apprenticeship. You're on it for its duration, or you don't complete in apprenticeship terms, or you can do a level 2 and then do a level 3 and then do a level 6 apprenticeship. You can be funded for the duration of those 3 programs. But clearly, when you start at a level 2, your English and maths will be assured to be in place at the end of your level 2 to a minimum, and again at level 3. So you're acquiring skills all the time. But yes, you can follow a ladder, or you can go with 3 A-levels into a degree apprenticeship, and the outcome could be a level 7 qualification or skill level. Nadra.
Andy, most of us in the room here work for either colleges or universities. So what do apprenticeships mean, or the development of apprenticeships mean about the relationship between higher education or education providers and employers? Does that need to be different now? What needs to happen?
Apprenticeships are, I would say, for some universities akin to what they've typically done, or certainly have a history of delivering. But certainly in terms of the apprenticeship, there's some specifics around it. And actually the way they're funded is very specifically sort of defined, and the way that they're actually, the achievement outcomes are specifically defined. So it does require a different interface in terms of the way that particularly some HE programs are typically delivered. So you are having a conversation with an employer, potentially not regionally based to you, that actually will require support for the off-the-job requirements, which means actually setting up potentially a different model of delivery. And it's the difference in terms of those delivery models that are determining the success for some institutions, the nature of their higher or degree apprenticeship provision. So there's a lot more flexibility to be inbuilt, because actually what you're not selling is something that is fit for purpose for everybody. There may well have to be far more negotiation about the way in which that delivery happens, and how you actually interface with your students or learners. Does that answer the question? Yeah. So it's challenging universities, and it's challenging some other providers, particularly as we've structured the brand into degree apprenticeships, about the way in which they actually offer their programs. So far more negotiated delivery, far more employer-led content, far more discussion about actually meeting the individual employer and the individual apprentice's need. Because an apprenticeship is about that individual's journey. They're not joining a cohort and one size fits all. They're having a very bespoke programme that meets their needs in the workplace to the outcome at the end of their apprenticeship.
Do we have any case studies of what happens if an apprentice drops out or can't complete a course, a degree apprenticeship course? Are there any penalties in place, or?
It happens. You know, at the end of the day, any individual learner potentially could decide not to sort of continue. Bearing in mind they're in work. So it's about what that employer has insisted they do, should they decide not to complete their apprenticeship. But life intervenes. There are some funding issues around a learner who decides not to continue. And of course the provider clearly has an issue around non-completion or non-success on the apprenticeship. That individual can pick up their apprenticeship if, for example, they need to stop for maternity or for sickness or for any other reason. They can pick up their apprenticeship at a future point and have all of that learning recognised. but it depends what their relationship is with their individual employer as to whether or not they stay with that employer or move to another employer. But there are always implications for both the employer, the learner, and the provider in terms of actually that stop-starter provision. But it is allowed because there's an acceptance that life interrupts.
I suppose sort of a follow-up to that question. How does it sort of work in terms of gaining that qualification at the end? So is it a pass-fail? Could you have obviously in comparison to a degree, you can fail your degree or not. There's different levels of, pass mark, 2-1, 2-2.
Yeah.
How does it work with that? Would it be that if you maybe couldn't achieve that level 7, you might achieve a level 6 or a level 5, or would they keep you going
it's a really good point. It's very nuanced actually. For degree apprenticeships, the outcome is the apprenticeship certificate and the degree award, validated by a degree awarding body. The degree in itself does not determine the outcome of the degree apprenticeship. Okay, depending on how it's constructed. And I talked about a non-integrated versus integrated type. I won't go into detail there. The degree award is clearly contributing towards that individual's acquisition of their knowledge, skills and behaviours alongside their day job. Okay? If it's a good provider, they'll know if that individual is going to fall short of their own requirements to meet the standard for the degree at an early point, I would suggest, as opposed to right at the end of the apprenticeship. But it may happen. And for some, the degree has to be achieved before they actually get their occupational competency assessed or tested. Okay? So it's quite critical that they stay on track, they do progress and they do achieve. Apprenticeships are all graded, with 1 or 2 exceptions. They're all graded outside of any other qualification grading criteria. Okay? So typically, apprenticeships will be about pass, being fully competent, and then make some differentiation between those who are just fully competent and those who are exceptional. And some standards will use, certainly, pass, merit, distinction. Fail is clearly an option as well. The degree will have to align with those outcomes and vice versa. Okay? So if you get a distinction in your apprenticeship, it should align with the way in which your degree operates. If it's an integrated model, with the way in which actually you're assessed at the end as being competent or not. So there is an alignment there, okay? But the institution who awards a degree may decide to offer maybe a certificate of HE or a diploma in HE because they've fallen short of the degree requirements at level 6. But actually, in terms of the apprenticeship, if they don't complete that degree, they're not going to complete their apprenticeship, okay? Again, the detail is in the content of the endpoint assessment plans as to the relationship between the degree and the outcome on the apprenticeship. In government terms, it's the apprenticeship that matters only. They don't care what inputs have actually gone into shape the programme design. Even in degree apprenticeships, their focus is, can they actually be certificated as completers on the apprenticeship? For them, that's all that matters.
With time for one
Ideological
question.
Any other question? Yeah.
Sorry, me again. I'm just curious about how they'll sit alongside a traditional degree of the same subject area, which would lead potentially to the same qualified status, and how potentially why would a young person or anybody choose that traditional route if they could?
Well, this is the whole debate. It's about actually changing some of that choice, which means actually if you want to become a registered nurse, why would you invest directly as a student through your own finance when actually you could potentially take the route in work through an NHS trust or another employer, for example, at no cost to your individual self, because that cost is directly borne by the employer and or government. This is where it's kind of disrupting the system, isn't it? And although we don't have very large numbers, it is meant to be disruptive. It's meant to actually challenge the way in which people become qualified or professionally recognised or professionally competent. So I think if you look at some of the earlier examples through higher apprenticeships, say, for example, accountancy, there is an argument that some young people who enter an apprenticeship in accountancy will become professionally qualified 1 year earlier than their graduate counterparts because they're in work, requiring sort of, additional skills, able to actually sort of complete the requirements for professional recognition far sooner. So it is a deliberate attempt to say there are some other choices here for young people and for adults. Okay, any other I prefer the questions the presenter. to be honest. Okay. Any other?
A bit of a follow-up to that one.
Yeah, some observations.
After
With
this
the-
one, we're going to
yeah,
break.
sorry.
Guys. Yeah, that's fine.
With these apprenticeships though, because you mentioned nursing, there was one in nursing in Leeds I was talking about recently, I do believe, and it sort of was taken down after a day. Yeah. Is it realistic to assume that they're giving those apprenticeships to people who already work for them? For clinical support workers, people who have gone in and worked, that it's unrealistic for an A-level student to think that they can go on and do a degree apprenticeship in nursing, for example?
That potential is always there, but I think there's a recognition that for some employers, they're looking internally first at their existing workforce and supporting progression from some of their other job roles into some of the professions, such as from sort of, healthcare practitioner or healthcare support into a route to qualified nurse. We've got an expert on the nursing side actually here in Cage. We'll be able to say a bit more about that over our comfort break. This is the reality. We've got a very sort of, unsettled system. The policy is still very movable. It's very fluid. We've still got some challenges to overcome. But I think in principle, we would all agree they're a good thing, wouldn't we? Yeah, okay. But we've just got to get more used to the system and how it operates. And actually it's about the push-pull, isn't it? At the moment, if you wanted to do nursing and apply directly through UCAS, that's your individual choice. You're in control of that. It's down to you and your own qualification outcomes. But at the moment, with apprenticeships, you've got to start with that employer voice who says, I'm going to start investing in apprenticeships in this way. And this is the opportunity that I'm making for any new entrant or existing staff.
Do you think eventually there may be sort of things put in place to make sure that there's a certain percentage of apprenticeships have to be sort of new apprentices going into the company? Because what's to say that businesses aren't going to sort of just
Yeah.
I'm not government, though I might still sound like government. I'm not government, but you're right. Government have a number of levers that they may pull to ensure that the system does what it sets out to do. And that's a whole debate around, is it actually driving some business growth? Are we getting sort of new skills and reskills, reskilled individuals into the workplace in a different way? Are we supporting actually progression into those occupations from non-traditional types? They have lots of ways of doing it, and they may decide actually they want to start sort of monitoring and measuring where we've got opportunities being reduced for some aged cohorts or some types of cohorts. We've already seen in the last few months the argument about actually degree apprenticeships removing opportunities for young people at level 2 and level 3. It's a bigger debate, but yes, government can use funding levers and policy levers to address some of those issues. It's too soon to tell what the long-term impact is going to be of some of this.
So on to the session that I'm going to deliver. Some of the information may be similar, but the vibe is very different. I hope it's kind of a nice way to finish your week off. And thanks again to Mandy for an extremely informative presentation that presented with a lot of dense information in a really great way. Some really invaluable stuff in there for you. So just to introduce the next sort of hour or so, and the mouse is going to start misbehaving for me now as well, you see, it wasn't just you. What we're aiming to cover, bear with me. Okay, so in this session, I'm going to be going over the current outreach activity and engagement that's been going on in schools, colleges and academies across our region and summarising that. We're going to be talking about the higher level and degree apprenticeship information sessions that have been delivered again into schools, colleges and academies, not just NCOP but also some cold spot schools across West Yorkshire recently. I'm going to introduce those sessions and run through, so I'm going to ask you to be your 15-year-old selves for 15-20 minutes and take you through the actual sessions that I've been delivering into these schools for the past few months under the school's engagement strand of the Degree Apprenticeship Development Project. And then we're going to look at the feedback so far. So how have the young people experienced these sessions? What are their thoughts and feelings around what's been delivered? And also looking at the key influencers and how they feel about the engagement sessions to date as well. And then we're going to talk about the planned engagement and outreach activity, so the kind of legacy that we're hoping the Degree Apprenticeship Development Project will leave behind, and how it can benefit yourselves and young people in the region. We're going to be looking at some key insights that I've gleaned in my time working on DADF from young people and their key influencers. So what do they understand? What don't they understand? What do they want and need to know to enable them to consider these things as, you know, real higher education options? And we're going to look at engaging young people and key influencers, something that I've spent a lot of my career, long before I was at Go Higher West Yorkshire, doing, and something that I'm sure a lot of you are well versed in as well, so hopefully we can have a bit of discussion around that. But some hints and some tips and some learnings that I've picked up along the way on this particular project and in the past as well. And then hopefully we can have some questions and a bit of a chat to round the session and your week off. Now, I could do with moving around a little bit, so let me see if I can get this mouse to behave. Okay, I think we might be in business. Thank you for bearing with me. So the overarching purpose of this part of the session really is to equip you as professionals with the knowledge and support that you need to confidently deliver higher and degree level apprenticeship information and support and guidance to your young people and their key influencers. I've experienced kind of an influx of requests for information sessions and for information generally about higher level and degree apprenticeships. But the Degree Apprenticeship Development Fund is a 6-month turnaround project, and I'm one person. So we're wanting to share the information, update you all, and ensure that you feel excited and empowered to go out there and more competently engage about higher level and degree apprenticeships. And also leaving you feeling informed about all the really great work that Go Higher West Yorkshire has undergone with NCOP and under DADF regarding higher level and degree apprenticeship engagement activity for young people and key influencers, how we're putting them at the heart of everything that we're doing with this, yeah, and making sure that the young person's voice is very clearly heard in all that we're developing. So the sessions that I've been delivering then that I mentioned earlier, so these are sessions all based around higher level and degree apprenticeship information, updates, support, guidance and preparedness. They vary in duration, and also, you know, in year groups. So I've delivered to 200 year 11s in a 20-minute assembly, and I've delivered to 15 year 10s in a college over in Bradford and led a 2-hour workshop. So really, really flexible. Ultimately, I designed that so that I had the best chance of getting on timetable and in front of as many young people as possible in as many institutions across the region to make the biggest, most positive and memorable impact possible. I didn't want to give someone a set session. I wanted to flex it to the teachers or the career professionals' need and the needs of the group. So what were they interested in? What did they need to know? How long had they got for me to engage with them? And that's proved really, really successful actually. So we cover everything, as you're going to find out, from the basics. So how do I get there? What are the levels? What on earth's gone on recently? You know, what's all the noise been about? Through to things like employability. And also, if I get the luxury of having more time with the young people, I'll do an interactive exercise and get them contributing because we all like to be listened to. And the information that, you know, they can instill in me can be massively invaluable going forward when we're formatting further engagement activity and understanding where misunderstandings lie. So, I'm going to take you through the aforementioned talk, as if you were a group of Year 11s. It's the short form, as I appreciate, you know, we're limited on time today, so don't worry, there won't be any interactive exercises for you to complete. So, bear with me 2 seconds, and I shall run you through the sessions that I've been delivering across the region as part of the DADF project for the past 6 months. So, welcome to this higher level and degree apprenticeships session. It's great to be here today. Thank you all for coming along, and I hope you're going to find it really, really helpful. So the purpose of today, why have I been invited along, and I'm very happy to be here to talk to you about these things. So we're going to cover the basics around higher level and degree apprenticeships and get you up to speed with what's been going on. Developments indeed in this area, so across West Yorkshire, that may well represent some really exciting opportunities for some of you in the audience today. We're going to balance the pros and the cons, so I'm going to introduce myself more formally, but ultimately my organisation, Go Higher West Yorkshire, are here to inform you and inspire you. I'm not here today to try and sell you an apprenticeship, to try and kind of persuade you that one might be for you. I'm here to give you balanced information so that you feel actually more informed as to whether this might be something you want to find out more about or not, which is fine. We're going to get some insights from degree apprentices themselves. So I've been lucky enough actually recently to be developing some content around degree apprenticeships and working with some really, really interesting, very cool young people who are actually undergoing degree apprenticeships at the minute. So a few quotes from those guys. And then I'm going to get some insights from you. So this is a two-way exchange really. There's going to be some interactive exercises, some working in pairs. I want to know what you think as much as you kind of may want to find out about all the information about degree apprenticeships I've got in my head. And then to close, if you are interested, if this has flipped a switch and you actually think, that could well be for me, or indeed someone I know, or it could actually be just something I want to speak with the people at home, you can find out where you can go, where's a reliable place to go, to check in, to find out more information and stay up to date. So, in order to make the session today good and worth turning up to, there's a few key things that I need you to do, and I promise to do the same in return. So listen up, I'm not going to be talking for the whole session, I want to hear from you too. So it's very important that you participate. Could be as simple as sticking your hand in the air or chatting to the person next to you, but your participation is key, and I think it will help you and I get a lot more from the session today, which should be great. And ultimately remember, your attendance is appreciated, your input is appreciated. Just you sat there listening, taking the information in is absolutely fantastic, so thanks in advance for that. So a quick introduction about Go Higher West Yorkshire, which is the organisation that happily I'm here representing today. So we are what's called a collaboration of the 12 higher education providers in this region, in West Yorkshire. So a lot of the big universities and colleges, we get sat round the same table to help understand how we can enable everyone who can benefit from a higher level of education to get there and get one. And we work together across West Yorkshire to improve access to higher education. And as I said before, we want to help young people in the region make informed, not influenced, decisions about their future pathways and indeed higher education. So these are our partners. You might recognise some of them, you might be considering going and studying and learning at some of them, and you might have friends or family that have studied at some of them themselves. They represent a really diverse range of all the different higher and actually further education options that are open to us in West Yorkshire. A little bit about me. So I'm Claire, I am the DADF, and we'll touch on what DADF is a little bit later on. Skills Project Manager for Go Higher West Yorkshire. So my background is actually in youth engagement on digital platforms, so things like social media campaigns, education through gamification, and often working with harder to reach audiences as well. So I've worked on campaigns for people like Greenpeace, Amnesty, Dogs Trust, Skills Show, and now luckily I get to work with Go Higher and do lovely stuff like come and chat to you today. So let's start with the basics then. So a few facts just to kind of put you in the picture about apprenticeships and more specifically higher level and degree apprenticeships. So what do we know? So does anyone want to be brave, shove their hand up, shout out one thing that you know about apprenticeships, however obvious or not obvious it might seem? Yes?
Earn while you learn.
Boom. Good. And this is the thing. Give her a round of applause. That was very good. She's not even seen it. That is correct, and that is the key message that is shouted about by, all the different campaigns around apprenticeships, and the thing that everyone attaches to apprenticeships. And you know what? It's true. The same applies with higher level and degree apprenticeships. You earn while you learn, you avoid student debt. How much you earn is very interesting and something that people misunderstand. So I had a young man in Bradford say to me the other day, it's a high level apprenticeship, 24 grand in every year, starting wage. And I was like, I'm going to have to burst that bubble. Yes, you can earn that amount. You can earn more than that. But actually, some apprenticeships offer a lot lower starting wage as well. So you will be paid reasonably, but it really does vary. Apprenticeship to apprenticeship, employer to employer, just like a job. The levels of apprenticeship. So what's the difference? Okay, so as you can see, you can start right in at the kind of base levels in terms of education and apprenticeships, levels 1 to 2, your kind of entry level stuff, moving on to something that's equivalent to, say, a BTEC first diploma. But what we're concentrating on and what's relevant to you guys probably most today is these higher and degree level apprenticeships. So thinking of, you know, anything really above an A level. And now actually apprenticeships are being developed or in development right up to a doctorate level. So they're becoming a really, really high calibre option in terms of higher education. So that's what we're concentrating on specifically today. So with the degree apprenticeship, and the same is true of all apprenticeships, you are working, you're studying, you are training to become competent and confident in a particular skill set, in a particular job role. And with a degree apprenticeship, you're also coming out of it with a degree, which is the equivalent to a degree you would get in a more, what would be considered traditional academic university degree as well. Absolutely brilliant. So how do you get there? Qualifications, and a few people I've spoken to kind of feel that it's just one pathway. You have to have done an apprenticeship at the lower levels, maybe an advanced apprenticeship, to be really truly considered for these sought after higher level and degree apprenticeships. Not true. Actually, you can go and present with a different range of qualifications to enable you to access a higher level or degree apprenticeship, and it varies, again, employer to employer, apprenticeship to apprenticeship. But ultimately, the key thing that might get you over the finish line in attaining one of these apprenticeships is showing that you are the right person that employer wants to hire. Because essentially, that's what it is. They're hiring you to do a job as well as learning and training. So you have to present yourself as the person they can trust and that they value in that organisation and they want to support through this apprenticeship. As valuable as the qualifications, really. How do you get there? So it's a really complicated space actually, but it is easier to navigate than you might think if you know where to go, which can sometimes be hard to understand. So going to the employer direct, a lot of the bigger employers that are now really starting to kind of champion these higher level and degree apprenticeships will advertise their vacancies on their websites. So maybe start to think about your future, your skills, your strengths, your passions, the industry in which you can see yourself doing well, yeah? Something that gets you fired up. Think about the employers within that industry, yeah? Within that particular space that you're interested in, that you've always respected, and go and investigate, look on the website. If there's nothing on the website, it may be they're considering higher level and degree apprenticeships in the future. So make contact with them professionally, confidently. Actually, employers will respect that kind of thing because it shows that you've done your research and you're not afraid to have a conversation. UCAS, you can't get a degree apprenticeship off UCAS itself, but it's a really, as one would hope, up-to-date, reliable source of information about higher level and degree apprenticeships, and there's some great signposts as to loads of different places you can go to apply, to find and to find out more. Brilliant government website that's designed specifically to help people, includes in the title, find an apprenticeship. So this is one that you can go and use various search criteria, so the level of the apprenticeship, the industry you might be interested in, the regional area that you might be wanting to take your apprenticeship. If you've got a good idea of what you're interested in, search on here. As you would expect, it's up to date and it should serve you back some interesting results. School or college careers services, or a teacher or careers guidance person that you might trust, get on well with, or have in school. They should also be able to give you some information or signpost you off to find out more. And the training providers. So what do I mean when I talk about training providers? So with the higher level and degree apprenticeships now, universities as well as colleges and the private training providers are getting involved in the space. So Cambridge University have thrown the hat in the ring recently. They're starting to deliver degree apprenticeships. So they should sometimes be able to match you up with relevant opportunities, or at least have that conversation and discuss the kind of degree apprenticeships that they've got on offer or they're looking to offer in their institution. But ultimately, the employer and also job websites. So how you might just search for an ordinary kind of a job, Indeed, Monster, good places to look. You're looking for a job, essentially, at the end of the day. How long they last? Now, I've put typically up here, but ultimately higher level and especially degree level apprenticeships are like the new kids on the block in apprenticeship terms. Higher level, you might be looking around 1 to 3 years. Degree level, as you might expect, higher calibre of qualification, longer duration of work, study and training. But again, like the money, like the specific arrangement, it varies employer to employer, apprenticeship. So make sure you do your research and you read all the information available to you about the specific vacancy for which you're applying before you do so. Also, going armed with some questions for information might not be readily available. What industries could you work in? Increasingly, higher level and degree apprenticeships are popping up in heaps of industries. So again, there are more apprenticeships available at the lower levels, but as time moves on and as higher level and degree apprenticeships are becoming more familiar with the apprenticeship space and less like the new kids on the block, they are popping up in all kinds of different industries, yeah? So it's not just kind of a hairdresser or a mechanic, you're looking at hospitality, leadership and management, public service jobs like policing and nursing. If there's an area you're interested in, research it. There may well be a higher or degree apprenticeship available for you. So just quickly, to keep you updated, let's go over what's new. So a lot's changed actually in apprenticeships in general, and that's because last year the government kind of recognised how valuable they were and how we could evolve the potential of apprenticeships. Not just for young people and learners, but also for the nation, for industries, for productivity. So a lot's been moved on and a lot's changed. And part of that change actually has been helped by the Degree Apprenticeship Development Fund, which is something I mentioned that I do a lot of work on earlier on. But what does it actually mean? Okay, obviously it's something to do with the degree apprenticeships being developed. But ultimately, Go Higher's West Yorkshire's involvement in this project is that we're working with a lot of our key partners, so colleges and universities in the area, to develop more degree apprenticeships in this region, which is great, very exciting, and it does represent an opportunity for more opportunities in degree apprenticeships for young people in West Yorkshire. As I said before, these are across various industries, so health, education, a lot going on in construction, the built environment, engineering. So again, they're worth investigating with employers and our local partners. And they're going to be delivered in local colleges and universities increasingly from the next academic year. It's brilliant because it gives you more of a range of these popular, sought-after qualifications to choose from right on your doorstep. So the pros and the cons. As I said, I promised you earlier on that we're not just going to focus on what's absolutely brilliant about degree apprenticeships, although they are a good opportunity. We're going to think about the other considerations that you might want to have in your head when you're thinking about them as a potential future pathway. So the money, right, while you learn. That's true, you get paid in most cases a decent wage, and you come out at the end of a degree apprenticeship with a really good qualification. Absolutely brilliant, what could possibly go wrong? The relevant work experience is another really good point about a degree or a higher level apprenticeship. Actually, the work experience and the opportunity that being in a live, fast-moving workplace represents is something that's been flagged to me by degree apprentices as being as exciting and as valuable as the pounds, shillings and pence that they take home in their back pocket, in their bank balance at the end of each month. They feel that they're becoming empowered by the opportunities that being in the workplace represents, as well as challenged. This means they're developing their employability. Employability isn't something that's easy to teach. But it is something that employers, again, the clue's in the title, massively value and that could set you apart from other candidates that are considering higher level and degree apprenticeships. Is anyone familiar with the term employability? I usually get a slim minority. Employability means things like punctuality, presentation and confidence, not just how you look, but how you present yourself. How you conduct yourself. Can you be confident, or at least can you fake it till you make it and come across and present yourself in a confident manner, even if you might be peddling away to really genuinely build that confidence up in the workplace as you go. Communicating professionally. Yeah? So not just in a presentation scenario or in a one-to-one verbal exchange with a colleague, because you will be meeting a lot of new colleagues if you kind of go into a higher level or degree apprenticeship, but on email or when writing reports. Can you articulate yourself? Can you write things down so that anyone else picking it up would clearly understand it and respect the writer? Really important. Staying motivated, and this is key. And this isn't just employability, this is something that's great for life, I guess it's a positive. Can you stay motivated? These things are tough, right? You're working over 30 hours a week, so you're basically in a full-time job. You're adjusting to all these new environments, new colleagues, new pressures, challenges. And also you're studying for a degree. It's not easy. What's going to see you through? Drive, motivation. What do employers want to see? Demonstrations of drive and motivation. And then ultimately, if you do stumble, if you do struggle, they know you've got what it takes and they will support you to get over any barriers and to make sure you can complete this thing successfully. And finally, and employability is huge, so these are just a few things. Resilience. Maps to motivation a little bit, but can you stay strong? Can you stay positive? Can you problem solve and focus on solutions, not problems? So, this all sounds absolutely brilliant. You're well paid, you're the most employable person in Leeds, absolutely wonderful, but higher and degree apprenticeships, as I have mentioned earlier, are pretty competitive right now, yeah? So they are becoming increasingly more and more available, but at the minute they're quite scarce actually. So like any sought after job, like any job that's worth getting, you have to stay motivated and stay confident and stay on it to be in with a chance of getting onto one of these things, yeah? Right from sourcing the opportunity, making sure you research the organisation, yeah? Getting yourself interview ready, through to the endpoint assessment. You really do have to apply yourself. And it is a big commitment, yeah? So you are working, let's say, pretty much full time. You are studying really hard, you're taking on loads of new stimulus from loads of new people, environments, opportunities. And also, it'd be quite nice to have a life alongside all of this. So, you know, you need to consider all those things and balancing it all before you embark on one of these programmes of work and study. So let's just touch on what the apprentices themselves say, because this is really important. Starting off with a really, really positive quote, actually, from a young guy over in Manchester, I believe, business management degree apprentice, saying that the course fits with work really well. He has all the stuff that comes with having a job, like a car, financially independent, brilliant, no debt, great. But he's still getting a degree. So he's obviously got an employer that's picked an apprenticeship that's perfect for them, and they've hired the right person. Moving slightly to a more balanced view, Louise, who's working in digital and tech as a degree apprenticeship, flags this time management aspect, yes, so it is a big commitment. Managing time across work and study is tough, and it is worthwhile, and this is a lot of what I'm hearing from majority of the apprentices that I speak to. And as well, you know, not forgetting we need some downtime, we need some time to relax. But that time management is a skill that a lot of the apprentices are very, very quickly picking up and actually finding really useful as they commence their apprenticeship. And this is a young lady I've been doing some work with recently for a massive apprenticeship campaign that Go Higher in West Yorkshire are launching quite soon, that's led by video case studies, actually on a kind of gamified interactive platform, so you might want to check it out. And this is Claire. She is a care leaver. She's in her early 20s and she is doing a higher level apprenticeship at the minute. And her higher level apprenticeship is actually based on advising other young care leavers on their future pathways and making sure that they can get the very best out of life. And she says that she feels her apprenticeship is about opportunity, yeah? Feeling empowered and growing in confidence as you do that. All these really important things that you cannot learn, yeah? You can't buy them, you've got to work on them, you've got to evolve them yourselves. At times it can be tough. She was saying to me, she'll get home, she's shattered, she's got a 3-year-old, he's kicking off, she needs to hit the button, she's like, oh, what am I going to do? But that motivation, that drive and that knowledge that she is getting a really good qualification and actually helping other young people keeps her going at the end of the day. So as promised, just a few really good sources of information that you can check out, because there's a lot out there and not all of it's correct or up to date. National Apprenticeship Week, has just been and gone actually, but it happens every year, usually around about the start of March, and there's a lot of activity afterwards. So it's hashtag NAW 2018, a lot of activity on social media, there'll be follow-up stuff going on there. Hop online and see what's been going on. UCAS, clear, current information. They won't give you a degree apprenticeship, but they might help you find out more or find one. Go Higher West Yorkshire, as I mentioned, you know, we stay up to date on everything that's happening in the apprenticeship space. We've got a dedicated web page with the basic facts and up-to-date information, and shortly we will be releasing some really, really interactive, very, very kind of lifelike apprenticeship case studies led by real local apprenticeships, and also featuring the thoughts, the points of views, and kind of what the employers value. So profiling from both sides, the apprentice and the employer. So that's something that's really, really worth looking out for. Okay, you can be yourselves again. So usually if I have a longer session with the young people, I'll do something interactive with them. So it might be an over to you, this or that, put your hands up. So something along the lines of, you know, who would be interested in interactive multimedia resources to use at home? Yeah, I've spoke to you in class. Who'd be interested in that? Put your hand up. Who'd be more interested in another session in the classroom? Should your hand up. Something as simple as that if I'm short on time. Otherwise, I'll give the young people worksheets to work through independently, to work with in pairs, discuss it in the groups. We'll have a bit of a chat afterwards. Refreshingly, they do actually engage with the young people. You know, they're very interested in this. Sometimes they've actually selected to come and hear more about degree apprenticeships rather than having it sort of imposed on them. So the levels of interaction have been really pleasing actually. And then we always at the end of the session do a really, really quick evaluation questionnaire, asking what they liked, what they didn't like, and what they thought I could have done better and what information they needed to know. So that's the end of that particular component of my presentation. And I'm just going to spend another maybe 15 minutes or so talking you through some of the broader activity that's commenced under this strand. So the session feedback from the young people has been largely positive. The analysis that we've done of the evaluation questions so far, they've ranked the sessions 8 out of 10 or above overall for how interesting and how useful they found them, which is great. They like the pace of the delivery, they like the images, they like the kind of life, they like the facts, so just nice, clear, concise facts. They want to know more about how much you get paid, unsurprisingly. They want to know more about, is there anywhere else I could go to look for apprenticeships, who can tell me. But ultimately, if I get questions like that, I do try and encourage them to research themselves, because if they can't go online and look for a vacancy, they're likely not to be the right person to take a higher level or degree apprenticeship, yeah? And I also, we kind of discuss, you know, it may be that you really want to go to university full-time and study art history. That's really what you want to do. That's fine, yeah? With the degree apprenticeship, you don't get what is typically considered the fresher's lifestyle. You don't get to go out and have a ball for a few weeks at the start of term. You've got to get in there, you've got to crack on. So there's some things that they still want to know, and there's some things that they really love about the presentation. In terms of the key influencers, some feedback from staff here. This really just illustrates how needed this information is and the appetite that's out there. So quite a lot of the sessions I've done when young people have been able to select to come along, for instance, the progression module day up at Leeds Beckett University have been oversubscribed. Yeah, so there's the appetite. I get the impression you will be asked to deliver this kind of stuff, or at least point them in the direction for this kind of information in the future. You know, this is information. I went to speak to a load of Year 11s. This is information their HEPO said they've never been exposed to before. So even the basics, they wanted to know them and they didn't have a clue. So the presentation was really, really valuable. Just what they needed, really very useful, and nobody got bored. And we'll touch on that a little bit later on, because that's like praise from Caesar with this particular group. Very hard to engage young people, not at all interested when they wandered in the room. And we managed to get them engaging, we managed to get them absorbing information, interacting, and more importantly, contributing. So that was really, really good feedback. So in terms of the engagement activity we're doing above and beyond the hands-on outreach stuff into the schools, colleges and academies, continued professional development, which you're all familiar with, is a really strong element of NCOP actually. And the DADF2 sort of strand of the continued professional development element of the project was kicked off at the Tetley. I know that some of you attended that event actually just before Christmas. But just to give you a break from listening to me for a couple of minutes, I'm just going to play the video, which gives a really nice summary actually of the event itself. Today is Go Higher West Yorkshire's Christmas CPD extravaganza. It's an event that's very much focused around informing our teams and our people in schools, colleges, academies and careers organisations about all the exciting developments that are going on around higher level and degree apprenticeships in the area, and enabling them then to feel more informed and confident when they're engaging with young people and key influencers on the matter.
For the organisation I work for, which is Leeds Teaching Hospitals, it's a really big deal because obviously we've got a really big apprenticeship strategy. Even this year we're looking at having 700 apprentices. The growth is an aspiration of the organisation.
The hope really is that we'll be able to have more routes for young people to go into higher education, and also that one of these routes will be through an employer.
Happily, a lot of the feedback from the attendees reinforced the research findings and the approach we were wanting to take. Also, we know that the employer voice resonates extremely well with our audience, purely by the popularity of the employer speakers that we saw here today.
I was very encouraged to hear that challenges that the teachers and the careers advisors have are very similar to what we're having as employers.
I just really hope that everyone who attended, everyone in the team and all the speakers took some really helpful insights home with them today. Did some of you spot yourselves on that? Fame at last. So there we go, that was the CPD event that kind of kicked all the DADF2 involvement in the CPD activity off, and it was really, really well received following the evaluation. Everybody that attended rated it as useful. A lot of people thought it was very useful. The employer speakers were very popular, especially the speaker that we had there from Asda, who I've actually worked with previously. He's very clued up. He gave a really, really good, comprehensive overview of how Asda are approaching apprenticeships post-reform, and people wanted to hear more from employers, which actually maps to what the young people want. I've been researching in this area and comms around this area, and young people want to hear from actual employers so that they know what opportunities they've got, but what an employer expects as well. That's actually quite a big question that's shone through. What does an employer expect of me as a young person, as an apprenticeship? So the legacy that we're hoping to leave behind for NCOP and broader actually as part of the DADF2 activity is sustained engagement delivery. That's one aspect of it. Very much what we're here doing today. This kind of train the trainer approach to help you understand what's been going on, but also how you can deliver this stuff yourself. And it doesn't stop here actually. We're going to be making these slides available later on this month online, so you can download them, share them with your colleagues, reflect on things. And there's also going to be, as you might have gathered, a video of the event today. So if you wanted to revisit any part of what you've heard and you wanted to ask any questions about that to the team, that's absolutely fine as well. We just want to enable you to feel great about going out there and talking about higher level and degree apprenticeships. Summer schools, so happily we're now kind of looking into how we can craft degree apprenticeships into all of the activity really that NCOP are doing, or some elements of it, to ensure that they are considered as a higher education option, not, as Mandy said, a this or that, not as an alternative, but as a real option. I thought I was doing too well then. In terms of content, degree apprenticeships are now going to quite comprehensively be included in the Progression Module Plus. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that particular publication, but it's a comprehensive portfolio of higher education options that is designed and delivered by NCOP into NCOP schools across the region, so potentially to reach hundreds and hundreds of young people and key influencers. And we are looking for and hoping to profile a degree apprentice as a case study in there. So if you do know of any degree apprentices yourself that might want to contribute to this massively invaluable publication, then please do feel free to drop me a line. I'd really appreciate that. We'll go back to the next. So moving on from content, in terms of the campaigns that we're looking at running, as I mentioned previously, NCOP with DADF2 input are developing quite a large scale higher level and degree apprenticeship preparedness campaign. This is a bit of a groundbreaker really, it's very innovative. We're using a new interactive video platform. So I researched the need and kind of the appetite for this sort of content with young people and key influencers quite extensively actually, and found out that they wanted to hear from real regional degree apprentices, yeah? No actors. They wanted to hear first-hand, horse's mouth, what's it like. This is reflected in the popularity of apprentices at things like apprentice shows. So when you see the employer stand, they've got an apprentice there with them. Who's everyone queuing up to speak to? They don't necessarily want to speak to Mr. Superdrug or whoever it is. They want to speak to the actual young person that's seeing this thing through. So we're letting the apprentices voice and be the front of this campaign. We're going to be showcasing a real diversity, so in industry, in gender, in kind of in background, and then showing that everybody is represented. This is some of the pilot team. We're going to be piloting sessions with the video case studies and the interactive elements into NCOP schools. We do actually have one session free at the minute, so again, if you think your school, college or academy might be interested in experiencing a pilot of this material, please do let myself or my colleague Crane, who was here earlier on, know. It's a video-led case study session with discussion points, question and answers, worksheets, information for young people to take home. It's got its own online resource. It's very multimedia and very modern, and we're hoping it's going to be really well received. But we need to listen to the people that we want to appreciate this. So the full project's only going to be rolled out once we've had time to take into consideration the feedback from these pilot sessions. So if you would like to book a session in, let me know. Insights. So in all this activity, what have we as a team and what have I learned about the apprenticeship landscape and young people and key influencers, interpretations and understanding of this extremely exciting space? So what do our young people and key influencers know? You probably guessed it. It's the thing that's cutting through. It's earn while you learn, and often, they just pull it straight back to the money, which again is accurate, but there is a piece to do in the gaps of understanding. They don't know a lot more than they do know, or a lot of the understanding is based on very, very kind of old hat misperceptions. So it's going back to that craft and trade sort of thing, apprenticeship, it's an oily rag, it's something you do if you can't go to college, whatever it is. That really is kind of an ancient misperception really, but it's understandable because there's still a lot of old information out there, and apprenticeships have evolved at quite a quick pace and they are continually evolving. But that's great because it means that what we're doing is addressing those gaps in understanding. What we're doing is delivering the information to inspire a change in understanding, in behaviours and in thoughts that's truly needed and that people will actually benefit from. We're not duplicating existing activity or going over the information people already know. We're delivering them what they need when they need to know it, or that is the hope. What is the key concern and challenge for a young person around an apprenticeship? It's balance. So quite rightly so, I suppose it's balancing, as I reflected on in the presentation for young people, work, study, commitments, family, friends, social life, holidays. How on earth am I going to fit it all in? It's a concern for prospective apprentices, and that's actually a very well-founded one because it's the biggest challenge that existing apprentices find. But they take it from a challenge and turn it into a skill, is what I've been hearing. And if they've got a good employer, that employer will support them, and they'll kind of help them along the way to make sure that no aspect of the apprenticeship or indeed the apprentice suffers as they get into grips with this kind of new lifestyle. So just to close, really, a few tips for engaging young people and the young people you might work with, and if you've got any tips you want to throw back at me, I'm all ears, so it'd be good to hear. I'm sure there's some people in the room that are more expert in this field than I am. But sort of before I was working with Go Higher West Yorkshire, my real expertise was youth engagement on digital platforms and delivering into careers and aspiration-raising environments. So learnings from the sessions I've been delivering over the past 6 months and things I've picked up along the way in the past 10 years, really. So being human helps, I think. You know, more so with young people than anyone else. So not just introducing, but endearing yourself. Why should they engage with you? Why should they listen to you? If these are less advantaged, you know, disengaged young people, without selling yourself, there's got to be some common ground there. There's got to be a reason for them to contribute their ears and their eyes and their thoughts. Staying animated and energised throughout the session. It can be quite hard to engage people for long periods of time. The younger you are, the shorter your attention span, also the theory goes. And a lot of young people really like the energy in the sessions that I've been delivering, and the fact that the pace is unrelenting, and it keeps them switched on throughout. Not all, but a lot. Vibrancy images and multimedia is good. Overpowering, especially younger minds with dense wordy content, is not. It's not something they're that interested in seeing. They like images, they like things to pique their interest, and then they'll engage with you and trust you to tell them the rest. Involving the audience. A young person is the expert in what they do and don't know, as is a key influencer, and we need that information from them to ensure that we aren't duplicating existing understandings and that we are delivering them what they need when they need it. And also it kind of fosters a mutual appreciation of each other's expertise and each other's thoughts and feelings, and it's great for insight gathering. Preparing for all eventualities, audiences and settings. So I maybe should have practiced this little thing a little bit more before I came in. But anything can go wrong and many things can go right, so know your audience and your delivery environment before you even get there. So we're just going to close there. There's some evaluation postcards on your desk. It's very important we understand your thoughts and feelings and input around all these sessions. Please can you complete them, leave them behind or give them to myself or Emma. Thank you very much to Mandy, Emma, Bill and the team at Go Higher West Yorkshire. Look out for the slides appearing on Glass Cubes online, and that's the same for the videos. And yeah, have a great weekend. Thank you.